Evening. Well, welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for March 6th, 2025. At this time, I would like to call the meeting into order. The commissioners who are present for this evening's meeting are at City Hall and on Zoom. We also have staff from the city attorney and the city clerk's office, as well as the city's planning department. If you're joining us on Zoom this evening, we can see that you are here. You may observe the meeting, however, your ability to be seen on screen and talk will be muted. During public testimony portion of the meeting, you will be unmuted and then be able to comment. Please note that we cannot take questions until the public testimony portion. If you have a process question during the meeting, please email cityclerk@meridiancity.org and they will reply as quickly as possible. If you simply want to watch the meeting, we encourage you to watch this streaming on our city's YouTube channel. You can access it at meridiancity.org/live. With that, let's begin with roll call. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Rust,
Here.
Commissioner Sandoval,
Present.
Commissioner Smith,
Here.
Chairperson Lorcher.
Here. The first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Please note that item 3, Latitude 43 subdivision, will be open for the sole purpose of continuance. So if there's anyone here tonight to testify on this application, we are not taking public testimony on this evening. Could I get a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second to adopt the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Oh, sorry, too fast. Any opposed? No motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which includes to approve the meetings of the February 20th Planning and Zoning meeting and facts and conclusions of law for the hyperbaric oxygen clinic. Could I get a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second to adopt the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I would briefly like to explain the public hearing process. We will open each item individually and begin with the staff report. The staff report will staff will report their findings on how the item adheres to our comprehensive plan and unified development code. After staff has made their presentation, the applicant will come forward to present their case and respond to staff's comments. They will have 15 minutes to do so. After the applicant has finished, we will open the floor to public testimony. Each person will be called only once during public testimony. The clerk will call the names individually of those who have signed up on our website or in advance to testify. You may come to the microphones in chambers, or you will be unmuted on Zoom. Please state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to address the commission. If you've previously sent pictures or have a presentation for the meeting, it will be displayed on the screen and the clerk will help you run the presentation. If you have established that you are speaking on behalf of a larger group like an HOA, where others from that group will allow you to speak on their behalf, you will have up to 10 minutes. After all those who have signed up in advance have spoken, we will invite any others who may wish to testify. If you wish to speak on a topic, you may come forward in chambers, or if in Zoom, you can raise the hand button. And if you're listening on a telephone, please press *9 and wait for your name to be called. If you're listening on multiple devices, such as a computer and a phone, please be sure to mute those extra devices so we don't experience feedback and we can hear you clearly. When you have finished, if the commission does not have any questions for you, you will return to your seat in chambers or be muted on Zoom and no longer have the ability to speak. And please remember, we will not call on you a second time. After all testimony has been heard, the applicant will be given another 10 minutes to come back and respond. When the applicant has finished responding to questions and concerns, we will close the public hearing and the commissioners will have the opportunity to discuss and hopefully make a final decision or recommendations to City Council as needed. With that, I would like to open the public hearing for Latitude 43 subdivision for request for annexation and preliminary plat, and they have asked for a continuance. Madam Clerk, do we have a suggested date for the continuance?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It looks like they're looking at April 3rd.
We have room on the agenda that day?
Yes.
Okay, can I get a motion to continuance for Latitude 43 for April 3rd?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve latitude 43 subdivision for April 3rd. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is for Pollard North subdivision for a modified development agreement, a rezone, and preliminary plat. We will begin with the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. This project was previously heard by the commission back on December 5th. The commission recommended denial to City Council based on their opinion the proposed rezone to R8 and TNR would create too much density for the area and not provide enough transition to lower density development to the north. Following the commission hearing, the applicant submitted revised plans to address some of the concerns raised by neighboring residents and the commission, which included a reduction of 20 building lots, an increase in the width of lots along the northern boundary between Pollard Lane and Schwenkfelder Avenue from a minimum of 50 feet to 60 feet, and replacement of some internal single-family attached and paired units with detached units, and open space resulting in an increase of 3.4% in qualified open space and additional pedestrian pathways. The applicant also changed their rezone request from TNR to R15, with R8 remaining along the north and east boundaries of the site. Due to these changes, the council remanded the project back to the commission for review and an updated recommendation. The applications before you tonight are a request for a rezone and a preliminary plat. There is a development agreement modification as well, but it does not require commission action. The site consists of 19.76 acres of land. It's zoned R8, generally located a quarter-mile north of West Chinden Boulevard at the north end of North Levi Lane on the north side of West Waverton Drive. The subject property is part of a larger area annexed with R8 zoning in 2019 and included in a development agreement and preliminary plat for Pollard subdivision. The property was approved to develop with 74 building lots for conventional single-family residential homes, independent living units for 55 and older, and an 88-bed assisted living facility. The comprehensive plan future land use map designation for this property is medium-density residential. As I mentioned, the applicant is requesting council approval of a modification to the existing development agreement for a new agreement for the residential portion of the development with an updated development plan. The approved plan is for the development of 74 building lots for conventional single-family residential home, independent living units for 55 and older, and an 88-bed assisted living facility. The proposed plan is for 157 single-family residential detached and attached homes. A rezone of 14.9 acres of land is proposed from the R8 to the R15 zoning district. Kind of skip by that slide there. That shows the approved concept development plan on the top versus the proposed development plan on the bottom there. A preliminary plat is proposed consisting of 157 building lots and 32 common lots on 19.76 acres of land in the R8 and the R15 zoning districts. The plat is proposed to develop in two final plat phases, as shown there on the phasing plan on the south bottom. The minimum lot size proposed in the R8 district is 4,350 square feet, with an average lot size of 4,805 square feet. The minimum lot size in the R15 district is 2,238 square feet, with an average lot size of 2,801 square feet. The gross density of the development is 7.95 units per acre, with a net density of 13.33 units per acre, which is at the high end of the density allowed in the medium density residential future land use map designation. A mix of single-family residential detached and attached units are proposed with front-loaded and alley-loaded options. Conventional front-loaded detached homes are proposed along the perimeter boundary to the north and east, which will transition to the existing and future homes, with alley-loaded attached and detached units on the remainder of the site. A 20-foot wide street buffer is required along the portion of West Waverton Drive designated as a collector street east of Levi Lane. Off-street parking will be required based on the number of bedrooms per unit. On-street parking is also available along internal streets. A minimum of 15% or 2.96 acres of common open space is required to be provided with development that meets the quality and qualified standards listed in the UDC. The applicant proposes a total of 3.94 acres or 19.94% qualified open space consisting of several open grassy areas exceeding 5,000 square feet in area, linear open space, the street buffer along the eastern portion of West Waverton Drive, designated as a collector street, and parkways along streets as shown on the open space exhibit, which complies with and exceeds the minimum standards. Amenities totaling a minimum of 4 points are required to be provided based on the area of the development. The applicant proposes a small dog park with a waste station for 1.5 points and a picnic shelter area on a site 5,000 square feet or greater in size for 2 points from the quality of life category, and a tot lot with benches for seating, which is 1 point from the recreation activity area category, which complies with and exceeds the minimum standard. The amenities are required to comply with the associated standards for such in the UDC. Several conceptual building elevations were submitted, as shown, for the 2-story attached and detached single-family residential homes. A variety of materials are proposed, including vertical and horizontal lap siding, board and batten siding, stucco, and fenestration with masonry accents in a variety of colors and design element and features, with varying roof profiles and wall modulation that demonstrate the high quality of development proposed. All single-family residential attached structures are subject to the residential design standards in the Architectural Standards Manual. Written testimony has been received from Eli Bensky, Brighton Corporation, in agreement with the updated staff report conditions. Only one letter of testimony has been received since the council meeting from Aaron Kwan. He is against the proposed rezone from R8 to R15 and the additional homes and density that would be allowed through the R15 district. Prior to the last hearing, there were 4 letters of testimony that were received that are included in the public record. Staff is recommending approval with the provisions in the staff report. Staff will stand for any questions.
Would the applicant like to come forward?
Good evening. For the record, my name is John Wardle. My address is 2929 West Navigator Drive, Meridian, Idaho 83642, and I work for Brighton. I'd like to share with you tonight an overview of the Pollard North project. As noted, we were here before in December, and there were comments made and items that we wanted to address. We took that to council, and they recommended us to come back to you tonight to go through the project another time. So you will indulge me here. So this represents what we originally had proposed that was in the file with 177 lots. We had proposed a rezone of the entire Pollard North project as TNR with an underlying zone, original zone of R8. And so the density of that project was about 9 units the acre and about 17.86% qualified open space. Based on the feedback from the commission, felt like the density was too high, and also that there wasn't enough given from a transition from a zoning perspective to the north, the areas to the north, and for that matter, the area to the east along Fairborn. Some other items that were taken that we received as feedback was the amount of open space on the original proposal. There was concern about TNR while it was not our proposal. There was concern that a TNR would allow multifamily by right. And so some mentioned that. And also there was a question regarding traffic over to Fairborn on Waverton, which is a collector road. So what we have brought back before you tonight is a revision to the plan. And I'll get into these details, but we are proposing to maintain the existing zoning of R8 along the boundary, along the north and along the east. So there'd be no change to the zoning. We would change the internal piece of this to R15 as a transition to the CG zoning to the south of Waverton, as you can see here, where we go from R8 to R15 to the salmon color, which is the CG. We also made wider lot sizes along block 1 and block 2. We did reduce a number of the paired units. And finally, we also increased the common area overall. So let me get into some of those details. The future land use map for this area is medium density residential, which is a range of 3 to 8 units per acre. And we were trying to accomplish that although we are at the top of the range, we are in that range now of 3 to 8 instead of over the 8 units per acre. Further, we also heard that, the importance of the transition. And by transitioning to the north and to the east, where those zones already exist or could be changed in the future of R8, we maintain that with R15 as a transition back to the CG zone that is part of the Pollard project. Just a side-by-side comparison, so you can see the numbers. We now have 157 homes, which is a mix of housing types. There are 27 common lots. Our density is 7.95 units to the acre. The qualified open space is now 19.94 compared to 17.86. And we also are showing in these areas, and I'll go to this next one, where these changes have happened. The top is up above, and then the bottom is showing where we are. Starting with number 1, originally those lots were 50 feet wide, which were similar in size to what Alden Ridge had to the north in their preliminary plat. We've modified those, so they're 60 feet wide now in the pink area. In the yellow area, we have now converted those to detached carriage lane or alley homes here, number 2. And then numbers 3, 4, 5, and 6 are where we have expanded and added more open space throughout the project. So each block has its own open space that's available with a larger common area in the middle. This also shows where the amenities are throughout the project. We are also adding, pathway connections, micropaths to the north in locations that when those projects develop, that those connections could be made. In there, we also have a micropath over to Fairborn and the common areas throughout the entire project with connectivity with pathways. At intersections and locations where those pathways are hitting the road, we will have chokers. So the roadway section will be reduced, basically eliminating parking in that location, but allow for pedestrians to move across the street without competing with a wider pavement section. As we mentioned, Pollard does offer a variety of housing opportunities. We looked at this pretty closely. We looked at where this community is. It has evolved from when we brought the project through in 2019. Back in 2019, Highway 16 was not on the map. There was no funding for it, and things have changed. And we know that by late 2026, that whole Highway 16 2026 intersection will be 2 major state highways connecting in this location. With that in mind, we've tried to address the transition to the north of the single family like for like, and internally where we have carriage lanes or alleys, we also are offering some paired homes and some detached alley homes as well. This kind of shows you where those different homes are within the community. We have 4 different home types, which offer 4 different profiles for individuals who could live here. The carriage lanes are both, the carriage lane B here would be the paired units. The carriage lane C would be detached, and here's some examples of both of those. We call conventional, which are basically the garages on the front of the homes. These are what we were showing on the north in the pink, conventional A. Those are the 60-foot lots. And as we move to the east, those become 66 and 72-foot wide lots, which actually are similar in size to what was on the original proposal for Pollard on the original preliminary plat. I think this is important. It was touched on about where the traffic will go. This is representative of the roadway system that's out here today. We have completed Waverton from Pollard Lane on the far left-hand side of this picture, and it does connect over to Fairborn in the middle of the screen. Levi Lane, we've already paid, it's a 5-lane road. It was actually only required to be a 3-lane road as a collector, but we worked with the highway district knowing that the intersection of Levi Lane would be important, and it's a 5-lane road. We've also paid for the signalization of that. It has not been signaled because ITD needs to finish some of their other improvements, but those have been paid for and just waiting for them to do that. The rest of these lines here are the local streets and how the local traffic will move from their neighborhoods to the collector system. The collector system is the dark blue, which is Levi, Waverton, over to Black Cat. Then we have the teal in ours, which are the local streets, the purple and Alden Ridge, which are local streets, and the orange, which are also local streets. Those are how all of those homes will get to the collector roadway system. In reality, everybody is getting to 2 points. It's to Levi and it is to Black Cat. People will have choices, but in reality is if somebody is trying to get from our project or even Alden Ridge for that matter, and they want to get to 2026 or Chinden, they're going to go to Levi Lane. There may be some that would find going to Fairborn, might be an easier way there and vice versa. But there is a collector roadway system that's in place that we've designed to, that we've built to, and it's intended to take the traffic from the neighborhoods to the collectors out to the state highway. And this kind of gives you an example of the final improvements that are proposed. The flyover is being built right now with this circle, the off ramp there as well. These improvements are all in place and expected to be done in late 2026. And you can kind of see here in the background of where the Pollard North project is in relationship to this, and Levi Lane is just right here. With that, we do concur with the staff report. We did take the comments given to us from this Planning and Zoning Commission and from the public as well. We took those comments to council and presented those, and even presented this idea of the change in zoning to R8 and R15, and they felt it would be best for us to come back. The reason we're back is we did listen. We did take the recommendations that were given. We have spent a lot of time looking at this. We re-noticed the neighborhood as well, letting them know the changes and outreach. So it's not been done isolated, but wanted to let you know of the process that we've been through. And we do request commission approval of the preliminary plat, the rezone, and the modification of the development agreement. The council will address that. So I stand for any questions that you might have tonight.
Commissioners, do we have any questions for Mr. Wardle at this time? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up to testify?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have Jake Jensen.
Good evening.
Good evening, Jake Jensen, 5011 West Caragana Street in Meridian, Idaho, part of the Fairborn community. Appreciate you all taking your time to be here and listening to our concerns that we have. I think it's important to note that, they present the original plan as the 177 homes. The original plan was the 50-some homes or 74 homes in this area. That was the original plan with the senior living, right? That's the original plan. So it's not like they're giving in on taking away from the 177. No, they're still asking to add 80-some homes to this area, which is a huge ask. Fine, I understand things change. You need to get rid of the senior living, but how does that justify 80 more homes in this area? To give you an idea of Fairborn, there are 175 homes covering 66 acres. This is asking for 154 homes covering 15 acres of land. You think of that community stress that it puts on. There's going to be a lot of children in this area. This is a place that great for Brighton, that they're doing homes that are good for the community, maybe more affordable. But where are these kids going to go play in this 154 homes? They're going to find their way over to the Fairborn neighborhood, put strain on our community. I understand the need to change plans, but it doesn't seem justified. The other concerns of the roadways, people cross Waverton all the time from where I live in Fairborn to get over to the community area, and the amount of traffic that this increases. That's going to happen. I understand that, but taking it from 75, maybe if it's 100, but going up to 80 more homes, that's just a lot more strain. And then the last point I'd like to make is just the strain that the schools are under in this area. I have 4 kids in elementary schools here, 32 kids in one class, 35 kids in another class, and a lot of them will go to this same school where they just had to rezone because they're out of room at this school. You add this many more homes, how are the schools going to handle that? We're just all concerned. I understand Brighton has to do what they need to do for their private, for their money, for all that kind of stuff. I understand that need to change, but how does it justify 85 more homes in this small area? Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Madam Chair, I have a Ken Fenwick who is online.
Mr. Fenwick, if you can state your name and address for the record, please. And you'll have to unmute.
My name is Ken Fenwick, and I live in Sun Valley, Idaho. But I have been in Meridian looking at new homes in the Fairborn area and became aware that this meeting was going to be held today. And my concern is making investment in that neighborhood and immediately seeing that investment diminished by the addition of some 80 additional homes above the original R8 plat that was filed by Brighton Corp. I also think that the other homeowners in Fairborn will also be facing decreased values in the investments that they have made. And I don't think it's fair for Brighton to profit the way they will profit off of the loss these homeowners will take. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Kyle Ensler is signed up and indicated he's representing an HOA, but he didn't check wish to testify, so I'm not sure if, did you want to testify? Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. Appreciate your time tonight. Kyle Ensler, 26, I'm sorry, wrong address. 5720 West Old School Lane, Meridian, Idaho 83646.
And you're representing your HOA?
Yes, yeah.
In which community?
It's 12, it's Alden Ridge.
Alden Ridge, okay.
Alden Ridge. So this isn't argument against Brighton. I think Brighton's a good developer, a good builder in our community. They've done a lot of really great things in the community. For me, this really comes down to, is this the appropriate density for this particular area? And I think you can't answer that without looking at the entire project that was brought forth in 2019 that still is yet to be built out entirely. So in 2019, this was part of a larger parcel. And so there's this whole commercial section that's yet to be built with, you know, and obviously plans can change a little bit. So this could be a little bit, fluctuate a little bit, but currently is planned for a 95,000 square foot hospital, at least 270,000 square foot flex spaces, as well as some other commercial, just on the commercial side alone. Currently, we have just the one commercial, it's actually, they just built a second building, but one commercial use back there, which is Franklin Sensors. And when Franklin Sensors lets out at 5 o'clock at the end of their shift, before their next shift, the traffic is already backed out. Now, I understand that Mr. Wardle's comments about the lights not in, and that's going to alleviate some of that strain once the light goes in. But we have a lot of commercial. And so initially when that plan came through in 2019, there was support from the neighbors because those are my neighbors. And so I've talked to them. They were at the commission meeting as well. They're also opposed to it. And originally though, they got on board with it because of this R8 portion that was presented as the transition and buffer between the commercial and what the city has planned, which is a low-density residential. And so that original plan included the assisted living facility, which hardly had any traffic at all. That's full-time assisted living. And then there were 74 homes, 40 of which were age restricted. So with, if you look at the difference between that and what's proposed now, not only is it an increase on the type of people that will be in there, is an increase of strain on the schools, but much, much more traffic than was proposed before. So on Waverton, my concern is while the plan that's presented is with the front facing Waverton, aesthetically that looks nice, but that also promotes more on-street parking. So Waverton is going to have parking on both sides of the street all the way down Waverton. And then in addition to that, what's not seen in that picture is the neighborhood to the north had a residential or a landscape buffer rather. I think it was a 15 or 20-foot buffer that needs to go away in order to fit another row of houses. So I just think that the strain is too much. I think it's too much on traffic, too much of the community. To my other concerns on Schwenkfelder and then Woodhead Avenue, which are the two streets that connect to the north. Really concerned about that much density and the impact of parking on the roads, especially those two streets that go to the north. I've been in that scenario before where you have through traffic and, in a dense community like that, and, kids come out through those cars and you just don't see them. So those are, obviously there's no designated non-parking anywhere on Waverton. So, currently you can park both sides of the road there. I'm concerned about that on the streets going to the north. And just overall, I just feel like the question is really, is this the appropriate density going from the 74 conventional homes before to 157 and being at the top end of that medium density residential? And I do think it's appropriate to consider the entire project that was approved in 2019 without just looking at this one section individually. My only other comment is I think, this is one development. There's still development that's happening in the area as well. There's still more development land here just to the west that also takes access off of Levi and Black Cat, as well as some more property to the north. So I do think that whatever decisions are made also sets a precedent for future approvals, which could be more density. So that's all my considerations, but thank you for considering.
All right, thank you very much.
Madam Chair, Randall Blenko. We also have Clay Lundgren.
No, okay.
Bill and Teresa Henry.
Would you like to speak? Bill and Teresa?
And then
Okay.
the last name we have is David Hitz.
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
good, thank you.
Good.
If you could state your name and address for the record, that'd be great.
I'd love to. David Hitz, 6669 North Elmstone Way, Meridian. I am in Fairborn.
Okay,
This is the third meeting we've come to.
okay,
We had one that was a slight shift in the schedule, so it would have been four. But my biggest concern is that, as Kyle put well, and so did Jake, is the density doesn't match the general area. I have recently started running again, very lightly, but I am proud of that because it's been about a year and a half.
good for you.
And as I've been running, I've been paying more attention because of this development of that path down Waverton. And imagining what it would look like with cars lined on both sides. And then imagining if I'm running when businesses are getting out, when people are trying to get to work, if it's not at 6 in the morning like I normally do, but maybe I want to go with my kids. And I've got 4 of them. And my house literally backs up to Waverton. And so naturally for us, it is popping right behind the house and going down Waverton where we can spend some time because there's a nice stretch. But when you add that many homes and you add that many cars, the safety kind of goes out the window. And then I look at the schools and I look at the shuffling and boundary changes that Pleasant View just went through because of the density of all of the development in the general area. And then you add this on top of it, there is no other elementary in the area that can support any of this. There's nothing planned to be built. And so where are the kids going to go? What's going to happen with the current school system? How are they going to learn in an environment that is conducive for learning when you start already hitting max capacity only 3 years into the school being there? Those are my biggest concerns, among the other things that are already on the record. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, no one else has signed up.
Okay, would the applicant like to? Oh, I'm sorry. Was there somebody else? Would you like to speak? Okay, sorry. Jumping the gun. If you can state your name and address for the record, that'd be great.
Sure. Good evening. Name is Chase Taylor. I live on 7,000 North Pollard Lane, just northwest of this development. And I don't want to belabor the point, but density's my issue. I have 6 kids, and we use Waverton to get to the bus stops there and back, and concerned about all the cars. And also, we're going to have a development built around us, and we knew that coming in. And we kind of knew the plan was going to be, there was going to be homes built out in front of our development, but it was going to be homes, not high density townhomes, I guess you'd call them. But so it's still a little disappointing to have an investment and having a future with plans looking like they want to be changed. So my biggest concern is my kids and just us being safe, getting in and out of our community. But appreciate you guys' time. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, before I go forward, would you like to speak as well? Okay.
Hi, my name is Leah Taylor. I live at 7,000 North Pollard as well. And yes, this is our 3rd meeting as well, plus the one that we rearranged to come and then it was continued at the last minute. We have 6 kids, so it is difficult to get to these meetings, but we are grateful for all of you and your public service and know how important it is to be civically engaged, especially when it can affect our own community so hugely. I agree with what's been said already. I think this density does not match the area and hope that you guys will not allow this huge jump in density and think of it more as still what they're adding from the original plan and not what they're taking away from the plan that has never been approved. The green space for me is a large issue. I know that they will be using the green space of the communities nearby. Traffic is a huge issue, like was said on Waverton. That road just doesn't feel wide enough to have cars parked on either side. And when kids are needing to cross a road, even if they know how to cross a road safely, when there's cars there, it makes it so much more unsafe. And like my husband said, our kids do need to travel down that road to go to the bus stop. Most of the time we drive them, but we will absolutely have to drive them. It's a whole mile to the bus stop. But with this kind of traffic, there's no way that they could walk to the bus stop themselves. The largest concern that I have, though, is the schools. Like was mentioned, we have 2 kids currently in the elementary school, 2 kids that will be going in the next 2 to 4 years as well. And then also high schooler and middle schooler. But the Pleasant View Elementary is already over capacity at 616 students. They've capped any new students moving in or coming into kindergarten. And there is an apartment complex that has already been approved on Black Cat and McMillan that will be within these school boundaries. So I'm not sure how that school is going to sustain it. And there's no other, like it's been said, there's no other school nearby. So I really hope that you guys will not allow this high of density and this many homes to be added from the original plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair. Interject for just a second. I want to just note for the record that Commissioner Sandoval has joined us in person. He was previously joined us via Zoom. And I saw him watching his phone as he walked through the door. But just for the record, Commissioner, can you just confirm you've seen and listened to all the testimony to date and you're prepared to act? Thank you.
Is there anybody else in chambers that would like to speak before we close the or before the applicant comes forward? Okay, I think we're good.
Yes, Madam
right.
Chair, no one else has signed
All
up.
right, Mr. Wardo, whenever you're ready.
Madam Chair, for the record, again, John Wardle with Brighton. Appreciate the opportunity to just address a couple of the comments that were made regarding buffers and transitions. The property that we are asking for your consideration tonight on a preliminary plat, the area that we're asking for a rezone specifically is highlighted there in red. If you look at the North Meridian area, from Highway 16 over to 10 Mile and then down to McMillan, we circled a number of pockets in there that all have R15 zone. And I think if you went through those neighborhoods, you would see that those were good transitions for the neighborhood. We are a little unique here. We do have a lot of commercial property, but you do see in other areas where it's either proposed or will come in the future, but the R15 to R8 to R4 are appropriate transitions of zoning. And this does exist in North Meridian. I didn't want the moment to go by as if this was done in a vacuum and it doesn't exist anywhere else. It actually does. These transitions are there, and that's why, based on the feedback given to us from the commission, comments from neighbors during that commission hearing, and our proposal to city council was to maintain an R8, transition to R15, which then transitions to the CG zone across Waverton. Regarding the buffer, we did have and will have a landscape buffer, which was an easement. Back when the project was approved, there was no Alden Ridge. Alden Ridge, we actually had worked with Restucci, Hayes, Ernst, and Schwenkfelder on that transition between them. 3 of those property owners had old school go across their property, and Schwenkfelder was at the end of that. When we talked with them, we were going to have a fence on the property line with a 15-foot landscape berm on our side, and there was already landscaping that was proposed on their side. When Alden Ridge came forward, they actually proposed a 30-foot corridor, which would be the place of old school road. I don't know exactly, but I suppose that was held there because they needed to maintain property or access over to the 2 owners to the east until there was other provided. But that was in fact proposed by Alden Ridge and shown on there. Alden Ridge has still not been platted. It's not been developed, but that was part of their plan, and we assume that they will maintain that. As it related to Ernst and Panter and Schwenkfelder, we've talked with them. We've provided our plans to them. We can still maintain the 15-foot landscape buffer in an easement, which was proposed before, and make that transition work for both of them until they decide to develop. When they do develop, one of the things that was asked was micropaths. So we have a micropath here, and there's another micropath just off the screen. And so, yes, we can continue to maintain that, but the buffer between us and Alden Ridge is actually existing through what will be Alden Ridge's common area of a 30-foot landscape buffer that they've proposed. We know that there's been changes. This plan that we brought forward before, the top one is the approved preliminary plat. We recognize that we've asked for changes. That's why we're back here in a public process. And the lots have changed. So I don't want to minimize that. And that's why we're here in this process. And based on the feedback that was given to us, we reduced the density even a little bit more. I do want to show you what the transitions were. We proposed 10 lots compared to 12 for Alden Ridge, 7.5 lots for 9 for Alden Ridge, 6.5. Previously, we had 8.5. We proposed 13. Previously, we had 14. We proposed 6 now. Previously, we had 7. So we've even reduced those transitions against what is to the north of us from the original preliminary plat. We are hopeful that based on the feedback given to us from this commission and the opportunity to come back and discuss this with you, that we can receive your approval and recommendation for approval for Pollard North, the preliminary plat, and the rezone of a portion of this to R15. Stand for any questions you might have.
Commissioners, do we have any questions for Mr. Wardle?
Madam Chair, I have a couple questions.
Commissioner Rusk?
Mr. Wardle, what is the timeline for phase 1? When do you expect those buildings to be completed?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Rust, the process for us still requires us to submit a final plat. And so at this point in time, even the best case scenario, we could start development of that first phase at the end of this year, with maybe home construction happening in the spring or early summer of 2026. Homes usually take 6 to 7 months. And so maybe the end of 2026, there would be occupancy. It might even be 27, but it would be at the very end of 2026 if we continue this course.
Appreciate that. When do you expect Levi to be signaled? Do you have any guidance on that from ACHD?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Russ, the feedback we have is currently there are signalization restrictions at Highway 16 and 2026 Chinden. Until they put final signalizations in there, they would do this one at the same time. So when that project completes, these signals can go in, but they felt like if they put a signal in here, especially when they're moving lanes through there, it causes some conflicts. So it's under, ACHD has the money and has the equipment for it, but ITD ultimately will be the one who will decide when they get installed. So my guess, if ITD's process and their timeline continues, it would be end of 2026, which should be consistent with when we would have homes completing.
One more, Madam Chair. Several of the public testimonials mentioned the parking situation on Waverton. I wondered if you could just clarify for the commission what the parking situation is on Waverton, if there's garages, how much of that is anticipated to be street parking. That was certainly something that was brought up by several of the testimonies.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Rust, all of the homes that front or face Waverton will be alley homes. So there are no garages on Waverton. Additionally, we have designed the alleys so that the garages are set back 20 feet from the alleys. So the city has a requirement in any home. You get a lot of bedrooms, you have more, but the typical is you need 2 enclosed and 2 in a driveway. And we meet that with all these homes with 2-car garages and driveways on the alleys. We have no driveways on Waverton. Will there be parking on Waverton? There will be. But if I am a homeowner or a resident, I'm going to go into my garage, into my house. There may be a guest or 2, and there could be several at a time. But we're not competing with driveways along this area. And it does provide a way to calm traffic as well.
Excellent. Thank you. No more questions, Madam Chair.
Mr. Wardle, originally the application called for a over 55 community. Did you consider that as an option going forward with this application, or has that been, is that off the table?
Madam Chair, originally when we had the assisted living, memory care facility, and some independent living opportunities, that's when we considered it. But as we've looked at it, no, we're not proposing that in with this project. Could there be individuals of that age demographic? Yes, but it's not an age-restricted community.
Community. And the proposed, or as far as you know, the proposed uses of the commercial area, one is going to be a medical center of some kind?
Madam Chair, St. Alphonsus owns the property there now. They have purchased about 16 acres from us. Their proposal is to build first a medical office building, which would be about 60 to 70,000 square feet. And the long range or long-term plan would be to have a hospital unit here as well. They feel like that would allow them to serve the community better, provide some hospital services in this. So they're currently, I don't know, I can't say that they will start soon, but they're currently finishing up another medical office building in Canyon County, and then this would be their next project. But the timing, I don't know of their medical office building as of yet.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? Okay,
Thank you.
we're good. Thank you. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second to close the public hearing for Pollard North subdivision. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Well, I'm both ways on this one. In one respect, Brighton listened to public comments, some of that, as much as they could with the product that they're offering, as well as the commission, to be able to make changes to their proposal for their subdivision. They have reduced the density. The transition is better. But I think ultimately the challenge is that whenever you live in a community and there's a piece of dirt in front of you, there's no guarantees of what that piece of dirt's going to turn into. And even if a real estate agent or even a developer might say, well, this is what we're going to do, and the community changes as far as the demographics and the economics and the roadways and Highway 16 and all those things kind of put together as players, there's still no guarantee of what's going to happen to that piece of dirt. So as a commission, it's important for us to be able to look at this application. Does it fit the code? Does it fit the space? And to make a recommendation to City Council where they will make more of a judgment call on what is the best interest of the city of Meridian. So on the positive side, Brighton has made adjustments to this application to be able to create less density and provided the carriage houses with driveways and parking. I don't think anybody's going to ever be 100% satisfied. But on the other side of it, North Meridian is getting, everything north of Cherry Lane is become high density. And the schools will respond and the roads will respond when those organizations are ready to. In the meantime, we can't stop everything and need to continue to go forward. So I'd like to hear from the other commissioners on what they think. I think Brighton's done a good job of being able to make those adjustments. My personal opinion is the density is still too high for that area in general. I think with the medical center and Highway 16 and Chinden being as many lanes as it is, it's going to be challenged no matter what goes there. Even if you turn into R2 or R4, it's still going to be busy. And I think being closer to a medical center would attract an older generation possibly, but there's no restrictions on that. So families could come in with their small children as well. So like I said, I'd like to hear from the other commissioners, but I'm kind of on the fence right
Madam Chair?
now. Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, I think a big thing for me, and I remember when this last came, I was actually on the fence and I think I voted against it on a tough decision just because there were too many things that were just slightly off. And I think for me, this addressed a lot of my concerns. I think that transition space is great. That transition space is super helpful to generally kind of helping ease that buffer to the more dense areas. Obviously, there's, I think there are a lot of areas here where it's kind of questions of where do you draw the line? How dense is too dense? I heard 100 thrown out as a number by some of the testimony. I'm sure that's too dense for someone else in the audience. And so there's questions, I think, and I'm not an economist. I'm not going to find the optimal, I'm not trying to calculate any of that. But I think as a judgment call in terms of the proximity to major transit corridors to kind of prevent a lot of stress on internal roadways, and the kind of the transitional space, the proximity to the commercial, to a lot of the things that we generally want denser development closer to. I think that outweighs some of the this could be a little bit better, could be maybe a little bit less dense concerns, and the fine tuning. So I think on net, I'm supportive of this. Obviously, yeah, I think there are probably some small things. I would say maybe on the Fairborn side of things, are there opportunities to improve that transition, seeing as there's more kind of transitional space you could transition just to get to that southwest corner kind of being the more dense area on Waverton. But we've heard before, you never know what's going to go in there if this doesn't. And I think that I would much rather something that I generally think is good for the community with a couple of maybe nitpicks over something else that could be a bad fit. So that's where I'm at. Yeah, generally supportive of this.
Commissioner Sandoval, any comments?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Sandoval?
I think this comes down to wise, and you guys did pretty good at that. So I want to hear what Commissioner Russ thinks, but generally I'm in favor of this. You guys sacrificed a lot, came back, so I'm happy with it. Curious what your thoughts are.
Madam Chair.
Would you like to comment?
Yeah, would be happy to comment. Passionate about the city of Meridian. And I think for the city of Meridian to be healthy, we have to have a mix of housing types. That's what's considered in our flume, in our comprehensive plan. I think that's really important that we have a place for teachers to live, for firefighters to live, for beginning starter homes. And necessarily those homes have to be built somewhere in our community. When I look at where this project is relative to the rest of the city, to major arterial roadways, highways, I really can't think of a better spot in general for this type of a development. Then you zoom into the micro and there's always concerns on traffic and density for the people that are already there and that have owned homes for 5 to 10 years, however long Fairborn has been around. I understand those concerns, but on the whole, I really want to see more of this kind of housing. As housing costs continue to rise, I want the American dream to be accessible to a wide array of people. And the reality is people are continually getting priced out of the market. We need stuff that's between a single family home and an apartment. Several of the commissioners have already said, if we don't approve this, what will come in here next? It'll be apartments. And that's, I don't want to cast fear with that. Apartments are good where they're needed. But I really like the design as it is. I thought that map was pretty revealing that most of the commercial in the surrounding 3 square miles is bordered by R15. I think that that's something that's important to consider. The fact that the entire border of this project is still R8 and the R15 is in the interior, this is going to be a really busy intersection. And it doesn't matter whether this gets built or not. The amount of traffic coming through here is going to be significant. But that could be a good thing as well. That's a sign of growth. That's a sign of a growing city. As Madam Chair has already spoken to, schools are going to grow and adapt, roadways are going to grow and adapt. The reality is that for us to grow, for us to have a vibrant community, we have to have more housing development to then pay for everything else that's going to be required. I wish it were the other way around. It would make our jobs as commissioners a lot easier. But that's not the way that city development happens in America today. I think it's really important to note that there's going to be 4 parking spaces per dwelling that's not on Waverton. That's not counting any additional parking on Waverton. I think that's important to note. And so for all those reasons, the 70 attached homes that are going to fill meet demand for a needed demographic in the area, for the health of the city, the general location, I'm strongly in favor of this as put forth by the staff in Brighton.
All right. After considering all staff and applicant and public testimony, I recommend to approve to City Council file number H 2024-0037 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of March 6, 2025 with no modifications.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve the Pollard subdivision. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And my vote is aye as well. All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. Can I have one more motion?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Smith?
move to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.